He depended upon this God on the basis of the forgiveness of his sins and the righteousness of the cross of Jesus Christ foreshadowed in all the sacrifices. That confidence as a boy, as a young man, he drew near to God, asking God to bless and direct his life. He showed true spiritual honor by desiring the blessings of the covenant that God had promised to give to his people. His heart was set upon those blessings, not upon earthly things, but upon these blessings. Oh, that thou wouldest bless me indeed. And you see the passion of the boy, the urgency of the young man. Oh, that thou wouldst bless me. This above all, I desire with all my heart, thy blessing. An honorable young man in the church. Young man, young woman, boy or girl. This is how the power of the covenant of God with you works, and how it will manifest itself in you, usually from an early age. Indeed, Jabez was more honorable than his brothers. So we read. He had some brothers. He wasn't the only child of his mother. And he was more honorable than they. This might express an absolute comparison between Jabez and his brothers. That is, the text may be telling us Jabez was honorable with this spiritual honor, whereas his brothers were not honorable at all. Jabez knew God in love. They rejected God, about whom they also had been instructed. Jabez loved the covenant of God and embraced it with a believing heart. They despised the covenant, Christ, and the blessings of salvation, like Esau before them, and sold it for a mess of pottage. Jabez had his heart set in his life that stretched before him upon the blessing of God. They weren't interested in the blessing of God. They had their heart set upon pleasure and wealth and fame. That's how it goes sometimes, even in the families of believing parents. There are Jacobs and there are Esau's. There are Jabez's who are honorable, and there are others who are utterly dishonorable with the shame of the rejection of God. God's predestination, his election and reprobation, not only divide the church from the wicked world, but also the children of believers. And that's evident already often in youth and childhood. Jabez shows this honor by his prayer, and his brothers are contrary. But we may be more charitable tonight to the brothers of Jabez, and we may take this comparison relatively. Jabez's brothers were honorable, but Jabez was more honorable than they. They knew God in love. Jabez was zealous for God in his love for God. They appreciated the covenant and its blessings, but not with the zeal and full heart of Jabez. They too wanted some territory in the land of Canaan. Jabez wanted more. They too submitted to God's hand. Jabez was more obedient, keen that in no way would he transgress the least of God's commandments. They too wanted to be kept from the evil. Jabez dreaded the evil. This is how it goes among the young people in the church still today, and among the boys and the girls. There are some young people, especially in their youth, who are satisfied with a minimum of the knowledge of God, a lesser amount of the blessings of salvation. And there are young men and young women already in their youth who want to know God as fully as it is possible to know Him. They desire the blessings of salvation in the richest possible measure for themselves. They want to be devoted to God, to the utmost power of His grace working within them. They see to it that they are members of a true church where the truth is proclaimed most fully and most purely. They are in church twice on the Lord's Day, as often as the church gathers, knowing that God blesses through the preaching of the Word, through the sacraments, and in the fellowship of the congregation. They don't willingly miss a single catechism class where the minister gives instruction in the Word of God, which is a means that God uses to bless young people and children in the church. And when they are in catechism, they are all ears and all heart, listening, taking it in, embracing it, applying it. And on the other hand, there are young people about whom we will say that they are saved, as they claim to be, who aren't so concerned that they belong to a church where the truth is purely taught and where the gospel is fully proclaimed. They'll settle for something less, even a church where the lies taught in part and the commandments of God are trampled underfoot. It doesn't bother them to miss church occasionally if they have some fun plans somewhere else. And they may come to catechism often grudgingly. And when they are there, they're not paying attention the way they should. They are no Jabezes. They are spiritual lightweights, those young people, those boys and girls. Jabez, already in his boyhood, was a spiritual heavyweight. I use that term advisedly. In the Hebrew original of the Bible, the word meaning honor comes from a word that means heavy. You may read that text, therefore, literally this way: Jabez was heavier than his brothers. Not, of course, in physical weight, but heavy with the heaviness of the glory and the grace of God working in him. God is honorable. God is heavy in His grace and glory. Jabez, already in his youth, by the covenant blessing of God, who has said, I will save you, and I will save your children, and who meant by that, I will save your children in their childhood, Jabez was heavy. The true heaviness, the true honor that comes from God.